Hi everyone. For Learning Unit 8, we will be looking at the family as one of the most important components in social institutions. So what does it mean by social institutions? Social institutions are habits or traditional ways of doing things that have eventually become established patterns of behavior. Institutions develop around human needs that are essential to the individual. Universal institutions are common to all societies. Therefore, the family helps provide the basic needs of daily life. Educational institutions provides a means to transmit culture and train new generations through formal education. Religious institutions, on the other hand, help so that people can express their religious beliefs and join in worship with others who express similar beliefs. And then we have the economy, which provides a means to obtain food, shelter, and clothing. And then the government, which provides peace and order around society. The family is the oldest of all social institutions. It exists in some form in all societies, whether it is past or present. The family is the most important element in the socialization process. For example, we learn to talk using our mother tongue from our family. All families share the following features. They are social groups that originate in marriage. They consist of husband, wife, and children. Members in a family are bound by legal, economic, and religious bonds, as well as duties and privileges. They provide sexual privileges and prohibitions, as well as love, respect, and affection. Historically, the family has taken two shift forms. Number one, we have the extended family, which consists of the husband, wife, children, and other relatives living together as a family unit. It is a typical type of traditional agricultural societies whereby cooperation is important for production. And then we have the nuclear family, which consists of the father, mother, and children. This is a typical of urban industrial societies in which there is geographic and social mobility. What are the special features of the extended family? In an extended family, they share the child-rearing responsibilities. Children form affectionate relationships with many persons. Socialization is a shared process. The welfare of the family unit has priority over the personal goals and desires of the individual, and there is a well-defined hierarchy of authority in an extended family. Why is there a trend towards nuclear families? It is because individuals are attracted to urban centers in search of work and form new family units. Many of the functions previously performed by extended families, for example the education and healthcare, have been taken over by separate institutions in urban, industrialized societies. Housing is scarce and expensive in urban centers, and there is a need to achieve status whereby an achieved status is what a person does through his or her own effort. It is important in industrial societies. There are four functions of the family. The first function is the regulation of sex. No known society leaves regulation of sex to chance. Marriage is encouraged and married persons are given high status in most societies. Marriage is socially and legally sanctioned in most societies. The second function is to control reproduction. It is to ensure there is always new generation growing up. Reproduction outside the family has not been sanctioned by any society despite changing forms in some societies. The third function of family is as the main agent of socialization. Most societies depend on the family to socialize their children in preparation for living in the wider society. Schools and peer groups have taken over part of this process. Apart from that, family provides care, affection, and companionship. It is a fundamental human need for survival. While companionship may be provided by other groups, affection is more often found only within the family. And last but not least, the family works as an economic cooperation. A family must work to provide sustenance and other needs for its members, for example, in providing shelter and also food. Marriage is a legally defined and sanctioned relationship. It is the union of a man and a woman, or various combinations thereof, living together in a sexual relationship with the expectation of producing offspring. In every society, the definition of the marriage relationship includes guidelines for social behavior, obligation to children and in-laws, division of labor within the household, and other duties and privileges of married life. There are two types of pattern in the variation of marriage. Number one is monogamy, whereby it is the union of one man with one woman. And then we have polygamy, which is a plural marriage. Under polygamy, we have three other elements, which is number one, polyandry, the union of one woman with two or more men. And then polygyny, union of one man with two or more women. And then group marriage, several men living with several women. In the selection of marriage partners, we have to take into account who is eligible. Every society regulates its members' choices of mates. All societies require that marriage occurs outside a certain group, for example, outside the family or outside the village. And then we have the incest taboo, which is a universal prohibition of sexual relations between mother and son, father and daughter, sister and brother, grandparents and grandchildren. Societies also require that their members marry within specified groups. Example, within a person's own race, religion, or social class. And then we have arranged marriages. Parents plan the marriage of their offspring based on the idea that a marriage is as much a concern of the families as of the individuals involved. It is to consolidate wealth, property, or political power, and the belief that young people are too immature, inexperienced, or impulsive to make suitable choices. In feudal times, bride capture was an accepted means for obtaining a wife in many parts of the world, and the practice continued into the 19th century. A man wishing to marry a woman would enlist the help of his best friend, the first best man, and together they would set off for the hunt. Many women, knowing in advance of their pending capture, did not bother putting up a fight. The trend is towards marriage relationship becoming more egalitarian. But is egalitarian status feasible? Resource theory by Blood and Wolf 1960 argues that the distribution of power depends on the resources each spouse brings to the marriage. Resources can be economic. It can be the earning ability, education, or occupational prestige, and it can also be non-economic in the forms of companionship, emotional support, and also social skills. Because society today places so much importance on economic success, the spouse with greater earning ability is likely to occupy higher status. But women generally still earn less than men. The greatest change in marriage patterns is the high rates of divorce in urban industrial societies. Is divorce a natural product of change? The nuclear family is better adapted to life in urban industrial societies because of it has more ability to pursue upward mobility. But it is isolated from the support of an extended family and emotions tend to be more intense. This makes it especially susceptible to conflict and as a result, divorce and desertion, child abuse and maid abuse. Liberalized sexual norms and changing attitudes to marriage also impact on divorce rates. One of the functions of the family is to regenerate society. But as the necessity of having many children decreases, the focus of marriage has moved away from the idea that it is the duty of everyone to marry to replenish a society. Increasingly, marriage is entered into for affection and companionship. Is divorce status becoming a social norm? Divorce laws in many societies have become simpler. For example, we have the no-fault divorce. Support organizations have set up to help divorced persons with emotional, financial, and legal problems associated with divorce. Unintended consequences of no-fault divorce is standard of living for divorced women and their children has decreased because the courts are no longer awarding big sums in alimony and some further default on child support payments. In some societies, child support deducted from father's salary. The consequences of divorce: men are generally in a better economic position, but in a poorer psychological position. It depends on whether there are children in the relationship. Research shows that unmarried or divorced women cope better than men with the unmarried status. Maybe because women have social and bonding skills that allow them to create a social network to sustain them. Divorce is never an easy or desirable situation. Difficulties happen in adjustment for children of divorced parents. These days, there are 6 changing forms of the family. Number 1 are those who preferred to remain single, which previously carried much more social stigma. Those who did not marry often lived with extended family. Today, single adults can live an independent existence. And then we have those who live together, or what we call as cohabitation. It is a recent phenomenon, but formerly considered scandalous. Success rate is low to be married couples. Why? Marriage rituals involves family and community. Marriage is a legal contract. Both help keep couples together. Thus, many prefer to cohabitate rather than getting married. Third is the one-parent family, which caused by divorce, death, illness, but today especially as a result of divorce. Also, single mothers are more likely to keep their children than adopt them out. Majority of one-parent family comprised of women. The social impact of having one-parent family is one-income families and women generally earn less than men. It is often difficult for a single mother to work full-time, and joint burden of earning income and child care falls on one person only. Next is the blended family, which is a result of remarriage which comes from 2 remarried parents and their children from previous marriage and children from current marriage. The family of the future, relationships are multiplied, several sets of in-laws, grandparents, siblings, and there will be possibilities of rivalry and jealousies which will increase. And then we have the small family. Reasons for wanting more or fewer children has varied in different societies. For example, in agricultural societies where land is plentiful, people are likely to want more children because they are an economic asset. But in small family, they either childless or having just one child. Families have been growing smaller since the middle of last century. Reasons are mainly due to economic, where more women are working and makes it difficult to take time out for child rearing and still maintain standard of living and get promotion. Contraception provides a choice today. Another trend is that women becoming mothers at an older age because of their career. Number 6 are partnerships. For example, same-sex relationships. Some countries have introduced laws that give the couples the same rights as married couples or even legalized heterosexual marriage. It may be controversial to some but approved by another. There are also new phenomena in family where we have mail order brides, whereby people are ordering their brides without even knowing them personally. And we also have prenuptial agreements, which is quite famous these days for security. Prenuptial agreements addresses the distribution of family assets should the marriage fail. Every day we can see new problems for the family as a result of social cultural changes. The first problem is regarding childcare. It is a big problem for families where both parents must work to make ends meet or where both choose to work. Daycare is hard to find, expensive, and often of poor quality. As yet, we do not know the long-term effects on children, especially the very young children who are cared for by strangers. The bottom line is that a child needs interested, affectionate, and stable care. Possible solutions: government-funded or subsidized daycare, and also employers can provide daycare facilities for children of employees. However, new technology, for example, personal computers, means that more people can now work from home or have flexible working hours. But then, we also have family violence. It is not a new phenomenon. Disagreements are an outcome of people living together. The definition of violence within the family differs between cultures. What is acceptable also changes over time. 200 years ago, children were often abandoned if their parents were unable to support them, or if they were unwilling to support the children. For example, if the children had a serious defect. Today's societies have strong sanctions against this. Family violence, however, has not decreased. In the United States, domestic violence is the leading cause of death among women. Drug use has compounded this problem. What goes on behind closed doors is no one else's business. And then there are child abuse. Children are being abused sexually, physically, and being neglected by not providing for emotional or physical needs of a child or constant put downs. Children who are abused are more likely to become troubled adults. They might be involved with drugs and alcohol problems, mental illness, and even violent crime. Some, but may not all, abused children go on to become child abusers themselves. Next is teenage pregnancies. It is not a new phenomenon, but the proportion per population greatly increased. Teenage pregnancies impacted two generations, the mother and also the child. However, the family is still the emotional center in people's lives. In spite of all its faults, the family is still the most efficient and satisfactory transmitter of culture, socializer of children, and nurturer of old and young that has ever been devised.